Hello, beautiful people. My name is Emma.
And I'm MC.
And we are your hosts of the G-Forces podcast. So it's been a minute, like 2 weeks actually. It really hasn't been that long. We might have recorded like 2.5 weeks ago and then came out with our last episode 2 weeks ago. But it's been a while since we've actually gotten to sit down to record. We had to take a little bit of a break because we both had a lot going on with our corporate jobs. But now we have a bit more free time and want to get those episodes out to you guys that we promised. So
yeah, we're finally kind of in that pre-holiday rush. We're right before Christmas, and so we've traveled. As some of you who are watching will recognize, we are back at our parents'.
Yeah.
So we're back recording in the basement. But yeah, I think we've just been swamped, and it's been kind of a quiet time in all of Formula One.
Yeah. I feel like since the last episode that we recorded, things have chilled out.
Yeah, we had that rush of craziness, and now I think people are just thankfully focusing on the important things at this time of year, which is being kind to others and thinking about your families and maybe keeping away from each other. Yeah.
I feel like the month of December in F1 and motorsports in general is a pretty chill month. From what I can tell, at least, like this year and what I've heard from people in the past, it seems like December is the time where the drivers are with their families, that everyone is just away from it, and then January they might have like obligations again for their team. So December is the basically stay away from me, no contact month.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the only thing we've seen is like awards ceremonies and dinners, and I think it's just kind of a typical end of year kind of feeling of, all right, let's wrap it up. We'll come back to it in January.
Yeah, like regular jobs even, I feel like. Anyways, so right before our last episode, actually in our last episode, we mentioned that there was a lot of drama going on with Susie Wolff and F1 Academy and Toto Wolff and the FIA. Since then, that whole issue has kind of been resolved in the sense that the FIA dropped that whole thing. After every single team came out together and were like, we didn't say anything. I don't know why you're blaming the team principals, but none of us said anything. And then after all 10 teams grouped together in support of Susie, the next day the FIA was like, just kidding, we're dropping it. This never happened. We don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one, really embarrassing for the FIA as a whole.
Yeah.
I think the fact that, you have to understand that there have been divides like we've seen in IndyCar where the teams get frustrated with the overall organizations, and I think this is a moment where you see like the teams will back each other up. It
happened in F1 in 2009.
Yeah, and I just think that, the FIA, I've said it multiple times on this podcast, there are other things that you should be focused on fixing and correcting as an organization, and I think investigating the Wolff's marriage and the way they communicate is not really a priority for anyone, and to be completely frank, I don't think we give two flying shits. I just think that it was such a weird, embarrassing moment, and they've been very quiet since. I mean, I feel like
there was even some weird stuff with the, I don't know if he's the CEO or the president. I think he's the president of the FIA. It was announced that he had like a concussion or something, and then he wasn't able to be in public, but then the next day he was seen at the FIA or like, the FIA awards or something, and people were like, what? Like, you had a concussion yesterday and now you're here?
I don't know. All I know is Susie Wolff was awarded like a Female of the Year award or something.
Like Condé Nast or something.
Yeah, I have to double check what it was, but they did it after all of this investigation drama, and I think it's really ironic because it's like, I don't know, you're trying to tear down someone who
nobody wants bothered. Like,
no one's asking for it. But
yeah. So because of all of that, when we were planning for this episode, we decided that this was going to be our F1 Academy episode. We had already been planning to do an F1 Academy episode just in general, but we figured this is the perfect time to do it, given everything that's happened over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I think when we say F1 Academy, I think the focus is F1 Academy, but it's also women in F1 specifically. So I think that most people know who Susie is now. But she has huge involvement in F1 Academy, and she's had a career
all on her own
without...
It just so happens that she's married to Toto Wolff, the team principal of Mercedes, which is the least important thing she's done in her life.
Yeah.
To us, accomplishment-wise, for her job.
Yeah.
I'm sure her marriage is important to her.
Yeah, but it didn't further her career, at least in my eyes.
She had already accomplished all of this before she even met him. So. But with that, MC is going to go over everything about Susie and her whole career. So she's going to be our driver of the week.
Mm-hmm.
And then I am going to go over F1 Academy because it is very different than F1. So I'm going to do the rundown on F1 Academy and talk a little bit about the W Series, which came before F1 Academy. Just compare them a little bit. So, yeah.
Cool. Let's get into it. Alrighty, so Susie Wolff, born Susie, I believe it's Stoddart, Stoddart, Stoddart. She was born in 1982 in Scotland, and around the age of 8, Susie began her karting career. She did really, really successful in the karting world. She went on to win incredible accolades in this field, going so far as towards the end of her career within the karting world, she was named the best female kart driver in the world. There are quotes saying that from her that were like, I don't want to just be the female, like I want to be the best driver in the world.
Love it.
And then, so Susie started that around the age of 8, and then in 2002, Susie moved from karting and graduated up into single-seaters. So she started this move by driving in the Formula Renault UK Championship. And so just for like a little perspective, this is like a stepping stone league between karting and I believe like the Formula.
So Formula Renault is now so there was the Formula European Regional Championships, and then there was Formula Renault, and they are both basically stepping stones between F4 and F3, but they combined a couple of years ago to make FRECA.
Yeah, so around the same time as Susie, Lewis was actually in this championship league. And so Susie's first year was 2002. Lewis went on to go win in 2003. And this is a relationship that you see constantly, throughout the years. Lewis and Susie have always been supportive of each other. In 2005, Susie Wolff secured a British Formula 3 seat, but unfortunately she broke her ankle and was unable to secure sponsors to meet the financial demands of F3, so she lost her spot. And there was another quote I read in an article that basically said, like, I could bring like $100,000 worth of sponsorships, but the $500,000 that F3 required, like, I just couldn't bring in that much.
I didn't realize it's that much.
Yeah, and like, you have to bring your own at that level.
Yeah, you do.
And at that point, you're thinking mid-2000s, and she just broke her ankle. Like, how do you sell yourself?
Exactly.
So she lost her spot, and then because of this, Susie then switched from single-seaters to DTM. DTM is a German touring car series, and I don't know how to pronounce what it's actually, like, it's very German, but if you look up DTM, German touring car series, I tried to, like, look into what made this different. A lot of it is, it's European-based, it's road racing. There is sprints, but there's also long distance. They said it was like similar to like American stock car racing, but then they also said that there's extreme differences. So like there's no real comparison.
Okay.
But it's a touring car series. And so I think, it's just, I'm not really sure, to be completely candid. So she started with Muck Motorsport or Muke Motorsport. And then in 2008, she switched to Person Motorsport. That saw her get a P7 result twice in the 2010 season. So in this touring car series, she was like fairly successful. And then 2012 was Susie's last year in DTM. So she was there from that like 2006-ish, I think. Like 2006 she was there. But then in her last year of DTM, she also became a new development driver for Williams. So in that last season, she was doing the touring car series as well as being this driver for Williams, and decided to finally focus on her role at Williams and stepped away from DTM. She continued in this role, and then 2014 probably saw what is known as like the most historical moment in her career, and it's the moment that everyone speaks about. That year, Williams announced that Susie would partake in 2 practice sessions. So Susie Wolff became the first woman since 1992 to partake in an F1 weekend. So what that means is like she was basically the first woman since 1992 to be in a car on a track during a race weekend. Other women in the past have, like, the farthest they've gotten, you know, I don't know what the rules were back in the 80s or the 90s, but qualifying was quite a bit different. And so you saw women involved in racing then, but not since.
Yeah.
You know, which is crazy. 1992 to then 2014.
Yeah.
That's a huge length of time that women weren't on the track. And that's not saying women weren't a part of the sport. It's just women weren't in the physical car.
Yeah.
There are other women who are playing just as pivotal, if not more important roles.
Yeah.
Please don't think like we're discrediting any of that. She did unfortunately have engine problems and was only able to do a handful of laps, but you know what? At the end of the day, that's more laps than any woman has done for quite a lot of time. It is noted, and I thought this was really interesting, and this is really going to grind your gears.
Oh, no.
It is noted that in her second practice session that year in Germany, she lapped only a couple of tenths slower than Felipe Massa, who was the actual driver. And I think I saw an article that said it was 2 tenths slower. Yeah.
So she could have been a driver.
I mean, yeah. Like...
I mean, that's better than the rookie drivers are doing this year during their practice sessions. The rookie drivers this year were getting, like, several seconds slower.
Yeah. I'm
really hoping that those rumors about Jessica Hawkins having a really close...
It did give me, like, very similar, like, oh my god, Jessica... I hope at some point, like, the feelings Jessica has, like, you know her and Susie, like...
But I almost feel like this is a driving force for Susie as well, being like, I was so close.
Yeah. 2015 was a similar season where she did get 2 practice sessions, but her test responsibilities were increased because of that success within those practice sessions. And then Susie ultimately retired in 2015, saying she personally had reached her limits as a driver. When Susie retired from racing, racing within F1.
And she was 34 at that point.
She made it clear that she wanted to be a voice and spearhead a stronger initiative to get women involved in motorsport. So in 2016, she co-founded Dare to Be Different, an initiative helping young women learn more about motorsport. I think this is very, like, UK-based.
Yeah.
But it's just very much, like, pushing educational programs, getting women involved, bringing them to, you know, like, to just see these things in person.
There's a whole section about it on the F1 Academy's website.
And then... in 2019, Dare to Be Different partnered with the FIA Women in Motorsport Initiative to have educational programs for girls age 8 through 18, and then this was eventually taken over under the umbrella FIA Girls on Track, which also coincides with F1 Academy. It's basically just a bunch of educational involvement, which I think is incredible, not only for, you know, the push to get women in STEM, but also just the fact that, you know, motorsport is not an accessible sport.
Yeah.
It's not something, you know, you can sit, you know, and watch like it's a very expensive thing to go see. just as a spectator, but, you know, to get that close personal experience, whether it's going to the factories or, you know, meeting the
100%.
people that are even, you know, in the pit crews or at the factories, I think something like this is so important. So that's just like a little bit about her, but then back to her career. In 2018, Susie became team principal of Venturi Racing's Formula E team. She was team principal during their most successful season in 2020 and 2021, like the way it like overlaps. It's you know what I mean. She was promoted to CEO but parted ways in 2022, and she is now the managing director at F1 Academy. So, you know, she started karting at 8. She has been through most, if not similar, experiences that all the drivers have had.
Yeah.
She has felt the struggles that a woman has in a male-dominated workforce.
She's also felt the financial struggles of the lower formulas.
Without
which is
a doubt.
huge part of F1 Academy now.
And that is the thing, is that she has firsthand hit all of these obstacles.
Yeah.
And so, you know, say what you want to say. I think just this resume alone, I think she knows how to do her job.
Yeah.
I think she knows how to be a professional.
Well, and she was also a team principal for a Formula E team. And so, like, she knows what it's like to be a team principal just in general. And she knows... So say there's...
She knows the pressures.
Yeah, and say... She also knows that, like, if another team principal had been given some information that they weren't supposed to have and it affected her team's performance, it would probably have pissed her off. So why would she do the same for F1? It would make no sense.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely, like... Knowing how close she was...
It's so frustrating.
Is so frustrating, like, knowing how close she got.
Yeah.
You know, is... It's very different the way Formula One is run when compared to the other women who have touched the sport. And I think there's more programs for women, but it's just... It's
still hard.
Still so hard to break through.
Yeah.
Slowly but surely, you know, definitely. I hope in the next
decade.
That'd be crazy. That's so long though.
That's what I'm giving it a lot of time.
No, I know.
Because right now, I think the highest female in racing is in like F2 or F3. I think F3.
I know Summer in F3.
Was it Sophia Flourish, I think?
Yeah, she's F3.
I think this is going to be her second year in F3.
Yeah.
So, and I think she's the highest one.
Crazy.
Yeah. So, that is Susie Wolff. I'm not going to go over F1 Academy and the W Series. So, for F1 Academy, this was actually its first year. It's only had one season so far.
Its debut season.
Yes, inaugural season.
Yes.
All the words. And the whole reason for F1 Academy was to progress female drivers to higher levels of competition. And it was specifically designed to give drivers access to more track time, racing, testing, as well as support with technical, physical, and mental preparations. So the problem is with the lower support formulas, you don't get a lot of prep time. Like, you don't get track time. And even with F1, like, unless your family pays for it for you to get track time with an old F1 car, you're not going to have much practice time when you get thrown into an F1 car, which is why they have the rookie practice sessions now to help people get a chance. But when you're even in the lower formulas, you don't have a lot of extra track time. So F1 Academy is hoping to solve that and then also just highlight some younger female drivers that hopefully can get some sponsorships in the future, because as Susie experienced, sponsorships are such a huge part of motorsport in general. And if you don't come with sponsorships, you might not get a spot on a team.
Well, and it's crazy, too, just knowing, the world of basically they have to be F1 drivers or, like, just motorsport drivers in general, but also influencers.
Yeah.
In order to gain all these sponsorships.
Yeah.
And so, I think F1 Academy is giving these women a platform that can kind of push, like, elevate their presence because we've seen it with our own.
Oh, yeah.
It's so difficult to build that.
Well, I mean, even just to continue about sponsorships quickly before I get back to it, one of the current F1 Academy drivers, Bianca Bustamante, she has Anastasia Beverly Hills, the makeup company, as one of her title sponsors. Which one of you think Charles Leclerc is gonna have Anastasia Beverly Hills as one of his sponsors? Absolutely not. And so it's bringing a whole new realm of sponsors to the sport. Which,
Oh, yeah.
like, if a little girl sees Anastasia Beverly Hills on a car, like, she's gonna want to go out and buy that makeup. She's gonna want to drive the car wearing that makeup.
Yeah.
And it just, like, changes a whole group of people. Like, changes everything for a lot of people. But, anyways, back to F1 Academy. So in this first season, there are 5 teams with a total of 15 drivers, so 3 drivers per team, and there were 21 races across 7 rounds. So a round is just one weekend, and each weekend has 3 races, and there are 2 qualifying sessions. So very different than F1. But I'm going to go into like what the order of a normal schedule is for F1 Academy a little bit later on. First, I'm going to talk about the car and the engine. So just to kind of break this down a little bit more. So the car is more similar to an F4 car, and which is helpful because it's a stepping stone sort of between F4 and then FRECA. So it gets you the track time for sponsorships, but also the experience so that you can get to FRECA and you don't have to spend too much time in FRECA or F3 or whatever. So I'm just going to go down a few of the criteria. So the design criteria, just all the cars had to be FIA 2021 safety rules compliant. Some of the technology that you'll see on these cars that are similar to F1 cars are sequential gearboxes and electric gear shift systems. So the paddles on the back of the steering wheel. And then for the chassis, I always say that's so weird.
You do say that weird.
I don't know. The way it's spelled, it feels wrong coming out of my mouth.
You drag the S, it's like chassis.
I know. I don't know what's going on.
You need to make the S like a little crispier.
I know. Anyways, it's designed by, I think you say it, Tatus? I think so. Sure. Automobile. And it's got I don't know how to say this word. I'm going to say it, and please don't laugh at me. Carbon monocoque.
You did it.
I think that's right, correct?
I don't know. I don't know.
Why
would you ask me?
I don't know. You were an English major in college. And that has to comply to FIA 2021 standards as well. And then it has a front and rear wing that are made of a carbon composite. It does not have DRS. The engine is an Auto Technica 4 cylinders, turbo 1.4 liters, 174 horsepower at 5,500 RPM. I've said all these words before in other episodes, and I still don't know what every single thing means. It's okay. At least I didn't say HP this time. I said horsepower. Gearbox. It has a bespoke 6-gear longitudinal gearbox designed by Sadev. This is very similar to the gearbox that we see in an F1 car. But when I say things are similar to an F1 car, I'm more meaning it under the terms like to help you guys understand it, not meaning in the sense that like it's fast or like smooth like an F1 car. It looks clunky when you're watching it.
Yeah, they genuinely look more like toy cars.
Yeah.
Like, we always joke that F1 cars look like toy cars, but...
These literally look like toy cars.
Yeah, and then we haven't watched a lot of, like, F3. We've maybe watched, like, 1 or 2 videos, and we've caught, I don't think, any level of knowing what F4 looks like.
I don't know if it's really filmed much.
Yeah, I mean, just videos in general.
Yeah.
You know, so many things show up on TikTok, but, it's a smaller scale. Everything is a smaller scale.
And it's much slower.
Yeah. There is a really good video that I just saw today, actually, of someone standing in the stands, and it was the difference in speed between an F3 car, an F2 car, and then an F1 car, all from the same position.
Sweet.
And it just shows you, like...
There is nothing like an F1 car.
The difference is so staggering.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, whenever Emma's, like, similar to an F1 car, it's just, like... visually so that you guys can understand it. Don't sit there and think that these like F1 Academy cars are just these crazy
It's a lower
It
level for a reason.
Yeah.
The tires are Pirelli tires. Performance wise, it has a top speed of 240 kilometers per hour, which I couldn't tell you what that is in miles.
Do you even know what the conversion is?
I'm trying to think about it. I'm thinking about kilograms to pounds in my mind.
It's not hand in hand, I believe.
Okay.
You're talking about
kilograms and pounds I can do in my head.
But we're talking about like the measurement of something's weight and then the measurement of distance or not.
It's a measurement of sorts.
Okay.
Anyways. It's not as fast as an F1 car, I can tell you that. It has a lateral acceleration up to plus or minus 2 Gs, and then a maximum braking deceleration of negative 1.5 Gs, which is significantly lower than what an F1 car experiences. The acceleration 0 to 100 kilometers per hour is about 3.6 seconds, and 0 to 200 kilometers per hour is 12.5 seconds. I know.
Wow.
Meanwhile, an F1 car is like right out there.
Yeah.
I was about to riptides. I'll just take you right out there. Rules and regulations, guys. Okay. Just so you also know, I'm getting all my information from F1 Academy's website. They have a lot of really great information there. I think if you go into their website, it's like the tab all the way to the right. It's like a guide to F1 Academy. All of this information is there, so if you don't catch something that I say, just go onto that site and take a look.
You're confused on something.
Yeah.
Just go. Check it out.
Yeah. Anyways. So, like I said, there are 15 drivers, and all the cars are identical. They're not going to look identical because of the liveries, but they are physically identical. All drivers must be women, 25 or younger, and 16 years of age or older when entering their first race event of the season. So between the age of 16 and 25.
Is there a time limit? Like a season limit? Or is it like once you win?
Once you win, you can't come back.
That's so sad.
There's a reason for that. And I will get to that later.
Okay. I thought it was like you won, get out of here. Like,
it sort of is.
Spread your wings.
Yeah, it kind of is.
Oh.
It's a good thing, though.
Okay.
So the weekend format, like I said, the races and qualifying sessions are much different than F1. So typically you can have 2 practice sessions that are 40 minutes each, and then you have 2 qualifying sessions that are only 15 minutes each, which is wild.
That's so small.
Yeah. And then, so there's going to be 3 races. Race 1 is going to be 30 minutes long plus 1 lap. Race 2 is 20 minutes long plus 1 lap. And then race 3 is 30 minutes long plus 1 lap. So it's not a specific number of laps. It's just a specific time plus a lap.
Interesting.
Not sure why they decided to do time instead of laps, but it might be because they are a support series. For now, like next year, they're going to be a support series for F1, so they have specific timings that they have to stick to. I don't know. Yeah,
I'm not sure. It'd be a great question for anyone that...
Susie, if you're listening, let us know.
Anyone that's involved in F1. Why times, not laps?
Yeah. Anyways. So for the starting grid, this is where things get a little dicey, it makes it interesting. So your first qualifying session sets the order for race 1, and then the second qualifying session sets the order for race 3. Race 2, so the first 8 finishers of the first qualifying session, their order is reversed. So whoever qualified 8th in the first qualifying session is going to start on pole for the second race, and then it switches for those first 8 people. And then 9 through 15 stay the same.
Interesting.
That's why it's a shorter race, and the points are different for that race.
Okay.
So the point system, for if you get pole position for race 1 and 3, or 1 or 3, it doesn't have to be both, you get 2 points. If you, for races 1 and 3, if you get top 10, you get points, and that is divvied out similarly to F1, where it's like 25 points and 18, stuff like that.
Okay.
Then race 2, the top 8 get points, but it is similar to like a sprint race where the winner gets like, I think like 12 points or something, or even 8, and it goes down from there.
Okay.
And then what else? You also, if you finish in the top 10, you get 1 point for the fastest lap.
Cool.
Yeah. You only get a point if you have the fastest lap, if you finish in the top 10. I think the way I said that was a little strange. You don't get a point for being in the top 10, just casually, for having a fast lap.
Okay.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
I just didn't want people to be confused about that.
I don't think the people were confused until you
I don't know.
further confused it.
You never know. I want to be crystal clear. Tire allocation. Each driver gets 3.5 sets of dry weather tires, and they can take a set from old situations as well. So, like, if they've only used it like once or something during a test, and they can bring it in.
Okay.
And then you get 2 sets of wet weather tires, which is interesting because what if it's raining the whole weekend? Fingers crossed, everything works out well.
I'm sure they'll cross that. Pirelli will.
They'll cross that bridge when they get there. And then all the drivers must have a grade B, C, or D international FIA license. I still don't fully understand how you can get an international FIA license. I have been trying to research that, and there's not a lot of information online about it. I'm very confused. That's something for another time. I'll figure that one out eventually when I can find it somewhere.
I'm sure I'm sure there's some guide out there.
Yeah, but having to read through FIA rules and regulations are not fun. So.
Yeah, I'm sure it's like some registration process, and it's like, you know.
So, that is all of like the basics for F1 Academy. I just wanted to go through the structure and just general things that you need to know. For W Series. So W Series was the women's series that came before F1 Academy.
Precursor.
And it's considered to kind of be a little bit of a disaster in a sense, because one of the points of F1 Academy is that it's supposed to be a stepping stone to F1. And they've created these relationships with F1 teams. So next year in F1 Academy, 10 drivers are going to be driving with an F1 team's livery. So they're going to be sponsored by an F1 team.
They've slowly been announcing.
There's been a couple that have been announced, and then they are all made a part of the driver academy for that team, which is super exciting. And so they're going to have these relationships with these F1 teams, which potentially could mean that they could make it onto that F1 team in the future, or at least being a part of a driver academy helps you down the road, because if you're a part of an academy, you're more likely to get sponsors in general and whatnot. And also, F1 Academy has had a few different deals that I'm going to get into right now. But first, let me go through the W Series criticisms, because that's part of this whole situation. So, W Series only happened from, it was 2019, 2021, and 2022. They canceled the 2020 year, obviously, because of COVID.
Well, I'm sure that didn't help either.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why, like, people thought it was a good idea at first was because it was free for the drivers. They didn't have to come in with sponsors or anything.
Whoa.
That was inevitably their downfall. Because they were promised, like, a $1.5 million, like, win at the end. And they ended up going bankrupt, I'm pretty sure. Or they just said that they were having financial issues. So they just didn't have the money for it. They did have an insane broadcasting schedule. Like, they were on, like, regular TV.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, something that F1 Academy did not have this year.
Yeah.
And F1 Academy next year is going to be, every single one of their races is a support race for F1. So their races will be happening at the same place, same weekend as F1. But W Series didn't have that. Their second year, actually, W Series, it was their second or third year. They were a support series for DTM.
Okay.
And so one of the biggest complaints also that people had was that they were segregating motorsport. So people were like, you don't need to be taking women and having their own series, which I think we've seen now how successful F1 Academy just has been in its first year, how it's going to help women down the road. And the goal is for it to not be segregated eventually, but at the moment it kind of has to be in a sense so that women can get noticed and get the sponsors that they need to continue to move up.
I mean, listen, women are clearly the minority. They are clearly,
Yeah.
it is starkly obvious how small the pool of women within motorsports, but also like getting the chance to
Yeah.
bridge that gap in F1. I also think that, we've seen the statistics come out that the spectator is the percentage
of it
is shifting, and maybe it is just a surge right now of people because of the Netflix show, who knows, but I think you have to look at it and realize, this is set up as a program to support women in the long run.
Yeah.
This is not I
think long term, they don't see it.
Yeah.
I think 20 years from now, they're hoping that they don't have to have this.
I think this is bridging that gap. I also think, it is the perfect opportunity to show little girls that you can be a driver.
Yeah.
And I think that it is also giving these young women the opportunity to be on a level, to be in this space that a lot of them aren't afforded.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's end goal for F1 Academy, and it's been clearly stated, it is a sport that does not want to be segregated.
No.
They're not looking for it. It's just right now, the traction is what... Now is the time for F1 Academy to come in because you have more women watching the sport who are intrigued.
Yeah. So some of the other criticisms of a W Series is that the same driver won each year it existed. So Jamie Chadwick won all 3 years of it, and now she's raced in Indy Next since then, but people are just kind of frustrated with it because, like, after you win, if the same person's going to win over and over again, you're not really able to highlight new talent.
Yeah.
So that's why I believe in F1 Academy, after you win, you can't come back, which is similar to what happens in, like, F2. After you win F2, you can't come back. Highlight new young talent, then let somebody else get a chance at winning. And F1 Academy is hoping that with some of their deals, so like Freca, they made a deal with Freca in a sense. Well, Freca has more made a deal with their teams. If Freca will grant its top teams a season-long 4th entry if they sign a driver who finishes P1, P2, or P3 in the F1 Academy standings.
Wow.
So basically, they're being like, if you want, you can have an extra seat on your team if you sign one of these girls. And so it's essentially like forcing one of the Freca teams to get girls onto it, which will then uplift them and help them get into another series, which is good.
Well, and it's just like, why are you pulling away 50% of the possible, like, why are you pulling away from, like, a huge pool of human beings that could be just as good? Like, you could have a prodigy on your hands and you would never know.
Yeah. So one of the other issues that with W Series that they were driving regional F3 cars instead of F4 entry-level cars. So the cars were a little bit more difficult for them to drive, and they didn't have the experience for that yet. And so that's why if you go from F1 Academy, you go F4, F1 Academy, FRECA, then F3, you're much more experienced to be driving an F3 car. There was also just a lack of track time, so you only had a few races. There were like only 6 races in a season. Yeah. And then just the overall financial issues, because it was free for drivers, they just didn't have the money to continue. And it ended at the end of 2022, and then F1 Academy was announced. The F1 fixes for all of these things were that F1 teams have to sponsor one driver next year each. The deal with FRECA, and then the entry. So this first year in F1 Academy, the entry fee for each driver was 150,000 euros. And actually for next year, they're able to drop it down to 100,000 euros, which is insane compared to what it was for F3 for Susie, if she had to bring 500,000.
Yeah.
So all of that.
I mean, my jaw just dropped at that entry fee, but then I'm realizing like these kids aren't going to like they're probably not going to college. Like
no,
this is
And you also have sponsors at this point.
Yeah, true, valid. Yeah,
so,
I'm thinking like, oh my god, $100,000 of their own money, but yeah, no shit.
With all this, now that I've kind of gone through it, I think we're gonna go to our final thoughts now, because I have a bunch to discuss, I feel like, and so do you. So
yeah.
For F1 Academy and for Susie Wolff, I feel like I don't know. I have a lot to say, I think.
Go for it.
But then I also am kind of blanking at the same time.
I think F1 Academy right now has a lot of eyes on it because, unfortunately...
It's a means to an end.
I also think... I weirdly think the weird thing the FIA just did to the Wolves might be a good thing for F1 Academy, because I think that there is now, there was already a magnifying glass on the fact that, you only saw a few drivers go to F1 Academy when they made, like, that one weekend was at Texas, that all the girls were, like, all the women were there.
Yeah, Coda.
You only saw really, like, Lewis and George. I think you saw...
Esteban.
Like, a few of them went and supported these female drivers, and I think that, now that all of the teams have kind of come out in support of Susie, I do think... And the fact that they have to sponsor a driver...
I think it's going to be huge.
You see so much of their weird media stuff that they make the drivers do, and sometimes they involve the reserve drivers.
I mean, they've already involved Bianca in some of the McLaren stuff.
And so I think we're going to see, like, a bit more... Plus, like, I don't know, as a female spectator, sometimes just, like, nice to get a girl's perspective in that room.
Honestly.
It's, like, it's very bro sometimes, and I'm like, yeah, like, the media things that they're doing are creative and whatnot, but I'm like, just get a girl in the room, please. No, I think it's a means to an end, but I think there are going to be people who are critical. There are people who are going to say women can't ever get to an F1 level.
I wonder who said that.
I have thoughts about that, but we won't name names. I just think that, we've seen these incredible athletes do amazing things, no matter who you are. And I think right now, F1, on the surface, they keep saying they want to support women. And I think that there are a lot of big players that in the next few years need to put in a little bit more of an effort.
Well, and I think
that's the problem I have with it, is that...
I think the relationship that FRECA is almost forcing the teams to create is going to be a first step, because, like, having each team sponsor a driver and then say that driver moves on to FRECA, they might still be a part of this team's driver academy, and then they'll be driving in FRECA with a team on their car, and they'll be able to make it into F3, and, like, it'll just be easier for them to find sponsors. And all of this is just a stepping stone, I think.
Well, I also think, when F1 Academy was announced, when we sat down and watched it the weekend of Austin, we started following F1 Academy on Instagram, and I would say, everyone listening, if you have any interest, go do that. because they're constantly promoting young women, but they're also just kind of showing you the statistics and how the sport is changing. And, you know, yeah, people who are starting and just signing up for karting, we're not going to see them for another 10 to 15 years on any sort of higher up level. But they're having more young girls signing up to join motorsports than ever before. And so I think, you know, while Series W had its downfalls and it probably wasn't planned as well as it could have, I think F1 Academy has seen those downfalls, improved on it, and you're already seeing
that's
so
the thing.
much
A lot
focus in a positive way.
Yeah, a lot of the articles I was reading about W Series was that would F1 Academy be as successful as it is today without the failure of W Series? Probably not. They saw the downfalls of W Series and saw the issues that it had, and that it didn't really help people, and at the end of the day get to F1 or even F3. So they saw what they needed to do to get that to happen. And there are still some criticisms of F1 Academy. Some people are still saying that there shouldn't be a segregated series. Some people are saying that they shouldn't just be focused on F1 in general. But I think it is a little bit easier for women to make it in other aspects of motorsport. I think F1 is the main one that really has a hard time getting women into seats, essentially. And so I think right now I'm excited to just really see what F1 Academy is going to do. And I really hope that next year we see some more of the current F1 drivers support F1 Academy.
From everything we saw too, it was successful. It was a successful year. I think it went really well. And I think that there are people that are in charge of it that are overseeing it who have clearly faced similar issues, have been through the roads of, you know, being a woman, being the minority. And I think we're going to see the changes. I just think, you know, we're not at the beginning. I think Series W is the beginning. I think we're just a step closer.
Yeah. Yeah, and with the whole, like, media thing, I think this year, the reason why when we watched F1 Academy when they were in COTA, that was our first time being able to watch them. They did, on the F1 TV app, they have posted some of their races, I'm pretty sure. But you do have to technically, like, go out of your way to understand F1 Academy, where if you watch one thing in F1, I think you kind of pick up on it. But at the same time, I think you still have to go out of your way to, like, understand how a weekend in F1 works.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really like
because I remember during COTA, there were a bunch of people that were like, they are not really making it very clear how this weekend works. And I'm like, you understand how F1 weekends work because you took the time to research it. They have it on their website explaining very clear how a weekend works for them.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I think it's probably just, like, the fact that people aren't watching it as much. Like,
there wasn't a way really to watch it.
So
I think next year, I'm excited to see the numbers on how popular it is to watch. Because, I mean, it is going to be there every single weekend with F1. Which is, well, not every single F1 weekend, but every single race that F1 Academy is having will be on the same weekend as an F1 race. So I think it's going to be the same structure again. So, like, 7 weekends, 3 races per every single weekend. So I think that we're going to see some more people get into it, especially next year. Because I feel like during the season, I saw people talking about IndyCar and F1, but they weren't talking about F1 Academy a ton because there wasn't a way to watch it. I think now that we're going to have a way to really watch it, it'll be good.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, I'm excited to see, you know, I think knowing that the first year was a success, I think that's a good tell. You know, I think if it wasn't, it'd be like, oh God, we have another issue on our hands. But I think because it was a success and we're seeing, you know, there are some women who have been in it that have moved on to incredible things.
Well, so the first F1 Academy champion, Marta Garcia, she will be driving in Freca next year for Prema. So Prema was actually the team that she was with in F1 Academy, and they have a Freca team, so she's moving over to their Freca
I
team.
think they just celebrated a big birthday.
I think so too.
Like 45 or something.
I don't know, I couldn't tell you.
Know.
But with Prema having an F1 Academy team and then also having a Freca team, not only are they able to develop like F1 relationships, but they have these lower series relationships that they can continue. Like Prema has teams in every racing series, in every like lower formula.
Wow.
So they have an F3 team, they have an F2 team.
Yeah.
So it would be wild to see if she just stayed with Prema the whole time, which would be super cool. But she actually got a fully funded seat, so I don't think she has to bring in any sponsors on her own, which is insane. But this gives her a year to essentially save money and find sponsors for next year's.
Yeah.
Which is really, really exciting. And she actually looked at our Instagram story one time.
One time when she won, and we were like,
Yeah.
congrats!
I freaked out. I was in my bathroom and I was scrolling on on our Instagram
Way
story.
to shamelessly plug that.
Okay, so it's not like I reposted a screenshot of her like viewing our story. I would never do that. I could say it here. But I was scrolling through our Instagram story while I was in the bathroom, and then I see like a blue check mark, and I look a little bit closer, and it was Marta, and I was like, no way, and I come running out into our kitchen, and this was at like 8 o'clock in the morning before work, and Mary Catherine, I can't remember if you were excited or not.
I probably was.
I think you were.
It
was early in the morning.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, I think that's everything for F1 Academy and Susie. Oh wait, no you don't. No, it's not. MC's got some other stuff because we wanted to talk about some women who made it.
Yeah, so before I'm I just wanted to kind of end it on a positive note and talk about 5 women who have made it honestly the farthest in Formula One. And so while we had this discussion and while it feels like we're on like not an uphill battle, but just like an uphill climb of trying to, get more women involved, I just want to talk about 5 that, have done what some deem impossible, but they've done it. So there have only been 5 female drivers to ever compete in an F1 Grand Prix weekend. And so when I say that, it's not the physical race. We're talking about they've been in the car and some involvement of a race weekend.
That's wild.
So Maria Teresa de Felipe, I'm sorry, I'm probably butchering Maria's name. Was the first female driver in F1. She raced in 5 races between 1958 and 1959. Leila Lombardi is the only woman in history to score points. She competed in F1 from 1974 to 1979, and her best result was 6th in the 1975 Spanish Grand Prix. In 1976, Davina Galicia attempted to qualify for the British Grand Prix, and unfortunately she was unsuccessful. In 1980, Desiree Wilson attempted to qualify for the British Grand Prix as well and was unsuccessful. And Giovanna Amati was the last woman seen in the F1 world in 1992 until Susie made her mark. She also attempted to qualify and was unsuccessful for the British Grand Prix. So all of those women have done the impossible, and they've gotten their booties in those cars during a race weekend.
I mean, hell, Leila Lombardi has placed higher than some of the current F1 drivers have ever before.
Some people will contend that the Spanish Grand Prix in 1975 did end early, and so, like...
I don't care.
But I don't care. She got 6th place.
There are races that end early now.
Yeah, no, I know. But, I don't know. I just think, like, knowing that women have done it, knowing that we've been there.
A woman has scored points.
Like, I don't know, poo-poo on all the people who think it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's possible, and these women have shown it. And the women who are doing it today... All of the F1 Academy women, Susie Wolff, Jessica Hawkins, all of them, they're doing the inevitable. And, it's something to really look up to.
Yeah.
It's something to really commend because I think it's a difficult road. Regardless, it's huge amounts of money and time to be any level of athlete, but in a very male-dominated world, these women have done it. And women will continue to do it.
Yeah, to the person, I'm not going to name names, but to the person who said that a woman would never really make it to F1 because they're just not as strong as a man and they don't have the aggression that men have, Leila Lombardi scored points in F1, so take that.
Yeah. It happened once. It'll freaking happen again.
It will happen again. It might take a couple more years, but it'll happen again.
It'll happen again.
Yeah. And you know what the sponsor is going to be on the car? It's going to be like makeup and Barbie.
Who cares?
And I'm going to love it. Imagine a Barbie-themed car. In the year of Barbie, that would be incredible. Anyways, I think that's all for now. I don't know when our next episode is going to be. Sorry, we're going to be a little bit inconsistent over the next couple months before the season starts. Especially during this holiday season.
Yeah, I was
it's a
going
little
to say,
chaotic right
Christmas is in
like a week.
Christmas is in 6 days.
Yeah.
New Year's Eve, we gotta travel between then and now.
It might be a good week and a half, 2 weeks until we come out with our next episode just because of the holiday season. But we will definitely come out with a new episode early in the new year. If you have anything specific that you want us to talk about in our new episode, let us know. If you want it to be like MotoGP or something, or if you want us to be
a specific driver.
We still really want to do our episode about Senna, which who knows, maybe that might be the next episode.
Yeah.
I think that might be our next episode. I'm saying it now.
Okay. Well, to all those listening, have a happy and healthy holidays if you're celebrating. If not, have a great
be happy and healthy.
Have a great rest of your 2023, a great end of December, and stay safe and Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah, drink a glass of champagne for us on New Year's Eve. And
or apple juice.
Yeah, that's true. Or sparkling apple juice. And then also have some grapes on New Year's Eve. For our Spanish roots.
Yeah, you just casually dropped that at the end and now we have to go on this weird... Okay, anyways.
We're not going to explain it. Figure it out yourselves.
All right. Talk to everyone later.
Bye guys.